we don't get named because it agrees in this camera is the main one. Alright, well thank you so much for letting us come in and talk to you about the PERK exams, and I'm just hoping that maybe we could start off with you just giving me kind of like an overview of what role PERK exams play in sexual assault cases.
Well, the PERK kit, which is a package of evidence that's collected by a forensic nurse at a hospital or medical facility, is the core piece of physical evidence for any sexual assault case. That evidence would contain DNA, hair and fiber, all kinds of different bits of that forensic evidence that would not only verify that the event occurred, but help identify suspects positively and so forth.
And so you kind of mentioned that it's a core piece of physical evidence when you're trying to bring this case into court.
Right.
I know that it's been a few years now since Sintra had these PERK kits available, and I know a few years back the Rotunda and like the Farmville Herald did some coverage on it. Could you kind of give your own background on that whole situation?
Yeah, it's when I first came, first of all, understand that the kit itself is just that. It's a bag of utensils and things to capture and gather that physical evidence from a sexual assault. When I say it's a core piece, core in that what it does is that the proper collection of that evidence allows us to prove or disprove information that is uncovered during a investigation. Say, for example, if a victim claims certain events or acts occurred and the suspect claims, no, it occurred this way, the properly obtained forensic nursing effort can prove or disprove either side of that story. So it's very critical. It's a critical part. Now what happened was, but now to understand, the kit itself is just that. It's a tool. It's a packet of material. What the real issue is the forensic nurse. Forensic nurse is not just something that any nurse can do. It's a specifically trained set of skills and capabilities. They also then have to be trained in proper court testimony and so forth. So that's a nurse at Centra Southside Hospital that would elect to also become a forensic nurse would be required to go through additional training, and then from that additional training be retrained or have additional training go on throughout her tenure as a forensic nurse. Well, what that then dictates to the hospital is that they have to allow for that training to occur. It would mean that on a day or a couple days when that nurse would normally be working maybe in the operating room or in the emergency room or on the floor, they would have to be pulled from that shift and sent to do the training. In addition to that, when the court case would come up and a criminal prosecution involving this, that person would have to be absent also in preparation and ready to be testify in the case. So when you talk to the hospital, they, and rightly so, they express that it is not only a significant financial burden to maintain the forensic nursing program at a particular place. Not only is it a financial burden, but it's also a staffing issue and staffing burden, especially for a smaller institution that is scaled its resources to meet the need of the community. So what Centra did, when Centra ended up purchasing Southside Hospital, they elected to, in their overview, to remove the sane nursing program from Centra Southside. I didn't agree with it. I have argued against it, but I understand their position. Okay. I argued against it because it's not only a university issue, and the fact that we have students that find themselves needing that on occasion, but it's a bigger community issue. You know, there are pretty close to, I guess, 6 or 8 counties that count on Southside Hospital for its services. And so I argued against it, but I understand their point. So as a compromise, what has happened is that Centra still has a sane nursing program, but the sane nurses are established, and that program's established at the Lynchburg Hospital. And so now what happens is, if you have a sexual assault victim and they elect to allow the sane nursing investigation to occur, that victim then has to go to Lynchburg to get that accomplished. And obviously, it's pretty cumbersome. What that means is that there has to be transportation from here to there. That's about a 60-mile trip, okay, one way and then back. Now, Centra has agreed that they can be done by ambulance. But what we've learned in the trauma-based investigations, and this is not new, by the way, I know that there's a lot of people that talk about trauma-based professional law enforcement as our officers understand that there's a significant trauma and that goes through any of these events, and trying to lessen that trauma is what really you want to encourage, so that not only is it beneficial to the victim, but it's also extremely beneficial in the investigative process to get clear pictures and clear understanding as to what happened. So that's a pretty traumatic thing, to suddenly have to take a car ride or an ambulance ride from here to Lynchburg and then back after the event's over with, and so forth, as well as the PERC process, or the forensic process itself. It is somewhat invasive. It's not necessarily painful, but it's invasive and it's stressful and so forth. So the forensic nursing process and the PERC kit is an essential element to have a successful investigation and ultimately a successful prosecution and justice brought to bear on the event. It's very, very necessary. It is the most significant part of such an investigation. Unfortunately, right now, there's a big cumbersome event that has to go on for it to occur here. Now, I constantly bring the issue up in our SART, sexual assault response team meetings and so forth that we have. I brought it to the attention of the administration of the hospital. I understand their position, but I understand our position, and my weight is always on the side of the victim and the investigation. And that's the part of the picture that I see the clearest, and therefore that's the place where I put my argument. Will it be resolved? Yeah, I think it'll be resolved at some point. When, I don't know. Okay, but I will constantly be looking at trying to bring that program back.
So, like with your last point, that you've been trying to bring this issue up in your different meetings with the administration here and also with Centra. What have those recommendations looked like?
Well, I mean, I don't know that I'm the best person to answer all of that. I've had a number of recommendations that, we need a victim's witness advocate, a larger and more vibrant victim services here in this community, whether it would be something that the university would stand up and run, or whether it's something that would run out of the court or out of the so there's a lot of different opportunities. Are there grant programs that could be worked through Madeline's House or through those things that could help stand up and help, if not totally support, help weight the financial burden that Centra feels they have? Is there not some effort in the community to try to help Centra meet what they consider to be a significant burden? I will tell you that you don't have a lot of nurses beating down the door to be a forensic nurse, okay? First of all, it means that there's a level of on-call responsibility. Unfortunately, many of these events don't occur between 8 to 5, okay? And so if you have a limited number of forensic nurses, there's going to be standby responsibility, and you may very well get woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, come in and do this thing. So, but I do believe with a concerted look and a commitment by the community, and I would include the university as part of that community, that there are some options that have to be out there to be able to try to support that. Realizing that it'll be an uphill battle, not just in financially, but in finding the appropriate people and appropriate resources to stand it up. And again, looking at it from a victim side, I think that the effort is well worth it. I'm sure that there will be others out there that look and say that there are so many other factors that the travel to Lynchburg is not that big a deal. My sarcastic answer to that is it would be a big deal if you were the victim.
And we already know, it's a well-known fact that sexual assault issues are often underreported across the nation. So, like you've kind of hinted at, it can make a already traumatic incident more traumatic to have to go through this process of either going to Richmond or going to Lynchburg in order to get
Sure.
this done. Could you maybe speak to how a more accessible way of like being able to address their incident?
Well, as I said, the only answer that I see to make it the fact that the SANE nurse program is available is a good thing. So we can, once we have a victim that is willing to come forward, and you know, one of the things that I struggle with in my position as the chief of police at Longwood University is I'm afraid that there are too many people that still think that law enforcement investigation of sexual assault is something out of a Neanderthal age of operation. It's not the case. All of our officers have received from the beginning, and we continue to go through this process of understanding trauma-based investigations, and so we treat these, we struggle with